Good morning you guys, it's Karen and I'm here to review the Fenty Beauty foundation, which is a range of foundations or a range of makeup by Rihanna. You may remember I said I might buy this, I wasn't sure. I thought 140 was possibly my colour, but I'm not really into ordering things like foundation online. But I went into Harvey Nichols and I met my friend in Edinburgh and I saw that they had a Fenty Beauty stand. So I tried out 140 and it seemed perfect. So 140 is my colour and I will show you what it's like, but I do have it on my face. It looks a little bit lighter there. But yeah, as you can see, I think it's a pretty good match for me. By the way, you can see that I've got red marks all over my neck. That is from retinol. It's a very low strength retinol, but I'm going to do a whole video on the whole dry skin and peeling from retinoids and retinols, etc. So I'm going to let that dry and I'll show you what the colour is like dry compared to when it's just applied, because there is a bit of a difference. This is £26, so it's about the right price for a higher end foundation. My Bare Minerals one I think is £29 and that's the one that I absolutely adore, so it's comparable to that. It's in a nice glass bottle. It's got the lid's plastic and this is plastic, a nice plastic pump. I really like the packaging, I'm a fan. So let me read you what they say the foundation does. I've just sort of summarised it. I'm not going to read everything from the website. It says that it's a soft matte, and I would agree with that. I would say that the finish is soft matte. You'll see in the video, I've got a demo of me putting this on this morning and you can see the finish without any powder. I always like to powder foundations. There's very few, if any, that I can think of that I've worn and I haven't felt like there's a tacky finish that I need to powder, and this is no different. I definitely feel like I need powder over this. So soft matte, long wear, definitely long wear. I noticed that this is lasting as long as my Bare Minerals Pro Foundation, Bare Pro Foundation. And there's obviously new technology that is really making these foundations super long wear. And so I noticed like 6 o'clock in the evening that this was still looking almost as good as when I put it on at 6 o'clock in the morning. So it really is long wear. It says buildable, medium to full coverage. I don't know whether I've shown it in the demo, but I always put one layer on and I feel like it doesn't look enough and I need to put a second layer on, and it does build up, but it's a little bit difficult to get it smooth kind of around my nose and sort of this area. So although it is buildable, it just takes a little bit more work, I think, if you're trying to build it up, and I don't get the full coverage in one pass, whereas I do with my Bare Pro. It says skin is instantly smooth. Yeah, I guess so. I didn't notice that particularly. Pore diffused. I didn't notice that it made a huge difference. I did have a close look up at my pores, and I don't have hugely large pores at the moment, but I feel like it did as much as any foundation would. It wasn't particularly, it's not like it had an inbuilt primer or anything, you know. I wasn't like, oh wow, that's really covered my pores, but it certainly didn't make them look more obvious. Shine free. It's not shine free without a powder. I felt I could see a shine, although the interesting thing is that I had already put this on for a demo on camera, transferred the footage over to my editing, to iMovie, for goodness sake, get your words out, and I was watching it and I remember saying in the video, oh no, maybe this was in a Get Ready With Me. I remember saying, oh, I really need to get the shine off this, don't I? Or something like that. But actually watching it, it didn't look that shiny. But I feel like when I put it on, it does have a shine to it. But maybe it's just a satin glow that I'm not used to. Undetectable on skin and sweat proof. I haven't tested out the sweat proof, but I think going a whole 12 hours without it really looking any different is pretty good. The undetectable on skin I'm not sure about, because I do feel like it does look like I've got foundation on. You know, I don't feel like it's a natural looking foundation, so I don't think it's undetectable on the skin at all. In fact, what I have noticed is if I, like, you know, touch my skin at all, it does move the foundation, which is surprising considering it lasts all day, you know. On me anyway, it lasts all day, but I'm surprised that whenever, you know, if I've sort of done that on my chin, I do touch my face a lot, I'm terrible for that, but it does, I'm like, oh, the foundation's gone just where I did that. Or I think what it was the other day, I was trying out the e.l.f. translucent powders and I got a brush and brushed it on my chin and I felt like I brushed off the foundation, which is really bizarre. I've never seen that happen with any other foundation, and so it's almost like is definitely sitting on your skin. It definitely doesn't sink in, and it does last, but you could sort of move it around. You know, you need to not touch your face. So I don't think that it's undetectable on skin. I don't agree with that part of it. So there's 40 colours in this range, and they're split into 4: light, medium, tan and deep. So there's 10 colours in light, 10 in medium, 10 in tan, 10 in deep. So I think that's really good and really useful, and it's quite easy to find your colour if you don't have a store to get to. You can look, and they have pictures of the type of skin type they're referring to, which is great. Just show you this as it's starting to dry now. You can see it takes a little while to dry. It's not an instant dry. And let me put a little bit beside it wet so that you can see the difference in colour. So you can see that it does go a little bit darker once it's dry. I suppose most foundations do. Because as you can see there, it does take quite a while to dry, because that is still tacky. I can still move that around and get foundation on my skin. You know, it hasn't completely dried down. You have got a lot of time to blend it, which I think is quite good with this, because it's not one that instantly goes on and looks flawless. I feel like I have to sort of work with it. So what I mean by that is I often find I've got stripes here, and I'm sort of having to push my brush in, and especially on my nose, if I just left it using my brush and didn't sort of pat my brush in a kind of stippling motion, then I think it wouldn't look so good. And in fact, it probably would be good to use a buffing brush on to apply the foundation, and then use a stippling brush or something like that, you know. But I was buffing on top of my nose to get it to not look cakey. It does look gorgeous though once you know, take that little bit of extra time to make sure that it's fully blended. And there are some that dry ultra quick and you don't have any time to blend them. So from that point of view, it's really good. I would say this is for all skin types except for maybe sensitive, because the ingredients, there's talc in there. I know some people don't like talc. There's silicone in it, and there is perfume in it. So if you've got super sensitive skin, you need to be aware of that. My thought, so this is what I've said about it. I've said that it feels cakey to apply. It feels, I can feel the silicones in this when I put it on. It's got an oily feel to me. Or maybe that's a moisturising feel, and I'm just paranoid about oil because of having such oily skin in the past. But it feels like a moisturising foundation. It doesn't feel like one that is an instant matte feeling. And it's not claiming to be any of these things, but I think that I prefer a slightly thinner feeling foundation, and this one, it feels a little bit thick, and it feels like it's going to be cakey. It feels like it's going to look cakey even though it doesn't. I've said it looks a little cakey with 2 layers. You know how I was saying when I put a second layer on this sort of area, it looked a bit cakey until I sort of properly buffed it in. I said in my notes here that it oxidizes, and the way that I noticed that was when I first used this, I made sure to not remove it from my top lip. My kind of usual way is I remove foundation from my top lip and under my eyes, and I use concealer there, because if a foundation is going to oxidize at all, it will tend to look like I've got a dark upper lip, and it's not because of hair or anything, that's just what it does on me. And so I didn't put concealer here, I just left it, and I did notice that it looked like I had a bit of a darker lip later on in the day, yet the colour was good for me. So I think if you're in any doubt between 2 colours, maybe go for the lighter one. But it doesn't oxidise as much as, say, the Urban Decay All Nighter. That one oxidises like crazy. It's not quite like that. Something interesting about the colour range is that this colour I've got on 140 says that it's peachy for light skin with warm undertones, and that's not the, if I'd have just seen a shade description, I wouldn't have gone for that one. I always go for a yellow based foundation for neutral undertones, and so I don't think this looks peachy at all. So I don't know where that peach has come from, unless I am colourblind, which I don't believe I am. I don't see any peach in that at all, but it says it's a peachy toned foundation. For light skin with warm undertones, possibly, because it, you know, it has got a little bit of warmth to it, but it's not orangey or yellowy or anything like that. I just found that very odd that they called that a peachy colour. That's everything I've got to tell you about this foundation just now, because like I said, it is the first impressions. I am going to continue using it. It's certainly not one that I've gone, you know what, this doesn't work for me, such as the Ordinary Coverage Foundation, the Ordinary Serum Foundation. you know, I kept 2 of them and I've tried to use them, but my first impressions with that were the second and third impressions. It just didn't work for me. Whereas with this, there's only a couple of things I'm like, well, it takes a little bit of work over the nose, but it does last really well. I don't love it quite as much as my Bare Minerals Pro, but I think that is because of the fact that when you put the Bare Minerals Pro on, I feel like it feels slightly thinner than this and it feels slightly more matte. That's the only difference I can see at the moment. So I'll continue using it, and you will either see this in potentially an empties if it takes me that long to decide, because I'd put it either in as an empty or an empties and fail. Or if I really enjoy it, I'll put it in my next favourites, and then you can get an update that way. That's everything. Let me know if you've used it and what your opinion is. I haven't watched any videos on this to find out what people think, and I have actually I know I've got a lot of videos reviewing it in I've got a little watch later folder, and I can think of quite a few. I can see their face now saying, you know, is it any good? Is it good for oily skin, etc. My skin is kind of normal to oily and it lasted really well, so I suspect it probably is quite good for oily skin. But yeah, let us know how you've got on. On my face, you know what foundation I've got on. Did I tell you the blush? No, NARS blush in Sin. The lipstick is Stila Caramello. I just thought I've been wearing that Too Faced Child Star constantly. Let me go, you know, switch it up a bit instead of just sticking to the same thing. On my eyes is the Lorac Pro. No, it's not the Lorac Pro, the Lorac Unzipped. And I really wish we had Lorac here, because there's a palette I would love to buy from them called Desert something. But we cannot buy Lorac here, or even from USA, I believe. I bought my Unzipped palette from Rose's Beauty Store, which was an online store, an online UK store that bought things in from America, but it no longer exists, sadly. So if anybody knows anywhere you can buy Lorac in the UK, let me know. That's everything. Thank you so much for watching, and I will speak to you again soon.